You think you can just accuse me of cheating while I was away on business and demand a divorce? My husband, Jackson, bellowed through the phone. It should have been a jolting moment, but I knew better. This was just his attempt at stirring up drama. I already sold it. And you know what? I could practically feel his emotions quivering on the other end. Did he honestly believe I wouldn't see through his little charade? His naivety was almost comical. As his accusations continued to ricochet off my resolve, I found myself teetering between anger and amusement. Yet, amidst it all, a sense of empowerment began to emerge. This wasn't just a spat. This was a turning point. This was the moment I decided to take control. I chuckled inwardly at his feeble attempt to manipulate me. And then, as if the universe had aligned, a realization dawned on me. It was my turn to play. I'm Olivia, a 28-year-old working mom. Though I've held a steady job at a college store since I graduated from junior college at 20, Jackson's career trajectory has been less than stable. He's 2 years older, but when we first met 3 years ago, he was bouncing between jobs or sometimes doing nothing at all. He proposed to me hastily, but I set a condition. He needed to secure a stable job. I wasn't about to embark on a marriage without considering our future. Okay, but there's a condition, I asserted firmly, watching Jackson's expression shift to one of concern. What is it? He asked cautiously. You need to find a stable job. Otherwise, marriage is out of the question. We need to think about our future. He attempted to brush it off with a casual remark. Oh, don't worry, you're working, so there's no rush, right? But my parents would be concerned if I married without a job. I'll find one before we tie the knot, he promised, sensing the seriousness in my tone. Reluctantly, Jackson embarked on his job search journey. Eventually, he secured an office position at a construction company, and we moved forward with our plans to wed. At the time, I saw Jackson as somewhat careless with money and work, but I believed our partnership could balance each other out. I thought I could guide him towards financial responsibility, and he would complement my strengths. Little did I know, our challenges were just beginning. About a year into our marriage, as we were exploring the idea of buying a house, Jackson revealed a troubling obstacle. I might not qualify for a loan, he confessed casually. I was taken aback. What do you mean? I pressed for an explanation. He shrugged. Because I haven't been at my job long enough, I might need a guarantor for the loan. The only option would be my dad, but he's dealing with some serious gambling debts. He probably wouldn't be able to help. Why didn't you tell me this earlier? I was dumbfounded, especially with the contract and the real estate agent right in front of us. But Jackson, appearing unfazed, nonchalantly remarked, If we put the house in your name, it'll be fine, right? You've been at your job forever, so you can secure the loan. We'll both contribute to paying it off. It's just a formality. That's beside the point. Why didn't you bring this up before? This is significant for me too. I'm not even prepared with the paperwork, I retorted, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. Though he offered an apology, his contrition felt superficial, lacking sincerity. Despite my urge to protest further, faced with the already arranged contract and the presence of the agent, I decided against escalating the situation. Reluctantly, I hastily gathered the necessary documents, such as my income statement, for the loan application, and impulsively finalized the purchase under my name. Doubt not at me. Could I truly envision a future with this man? Perhaps I should have simply asserted, then we won't proceed, instead of hastily preparing the paperwork. My anxiety heightened with the looming issue of my in-laws. The other day, I had a conversation with Dad, Jackson began. He mentioned he might lose the house due to the debt I mentioned earlier, so he's considering moving in with us. Is that all right? What? Why would you even entertain that idea? I reacted swiftly, but Jackson merely shrugged it off. Well, he's facing difficulties. My brother is single, but he's working abroad. I'm the only one Dad can turn to. Shouldn't we seriously discuss this? Maybe he can stay temporarily until he finds a place, but committing to living with us permanently is a major decision. Jackson scowled. You just don't want him to stay, do you? If he moves in, we can divide the living expenses. You're always going on about money. You mean the money you never contribute? You promised we'd split the mortgage, but it's only coming out of my paycheck. You haven't given your share. In marriage, finances are shared. It's not just your money, it's ours. It's deducted from your account because the house is in your name. Stop being so self-centered, I exclaimed, frustration evident in my tone. But Jackson simply muttered, I hate discussing money, before storming out of the room. Such disputes became a regular occurrence. Every time, Jackson would brush off my concerns and eventually retreat. No resolution was ever reached. However, Jackson wasn't entirely inactive regarding his family's predicament. As part of his role in construction site administration, he frequently dealt with real estate contracts. He often consulted a specific agency on how to secure the best price for selling his family's home and the necessary procedures involved. I overheard these discussions repeatedly, finding solace in the fact that I wasn't alone in contemplating this matter. Yet the prospect of my in-laws moving in with us post-sale, as if it were a foregone conclusion, continued to unsettle me. Jackson began attending meetings with real estate agents and my in-laws without involving me, and he started spending more weekends away from home. Eventually, he embarked on a lengthy business trip lasting several months, necessitated by the distance of the construction site he was overseeing. It wasn't apparent to me then, but the seeds of our power struggle had already been sown. A few days after Jackson departed for his trip, I decided to treat myself to tea after a shopping excursion. Hello, the man who greeted me seemed familiar. Memories flooded back, recalling him as someone Jackson had once brought home. He worked at a real estate company, a young employee named Samuel, according to Jackson. Samuel had been with the company for less than a year. Ah, yes, I remember you. You visited our house before, right? Yes, I apologize for dropping by unannounced and even joining for a meal. My apologies. No need to worry. I should have been more welcoming. We ended up sharing tea together. Samuel was affable and appeared more level-headed than Jackson, despite his youth. As we conversed over tea, we found common ground and eventually bid each other farewell. At that moment, I couldn't fathom that this brief encounter would later be twisted into an accusation of infidelity. Yet that's precisely what happened when Jackson confronted me. You've been cheating on me while I was away, haven't you? We're getting a divorce. Give the house to my parents and leave, immediately. Jackson's accusation hit me like a sledgehammer. In that moment, I couldn't help but wonder if the rumors were true. Jackson had evidently been spreading falsehoods, fabricating a narrative of my infidelity to justify his desire for divorce. And the bearer of this false tale was none other than Samuel, the man Jackson unjustly accused me of having an affair with. He showed up at my doorstep the day after our tea. I apologize for the sudden visit yesterday. Jackson asked me to reach out to you. Samuel confessed as he stood at my doorway. Shock and confusion washed over me, but I invited him inside, eager to hear his story. What he revealed left me stunned. Jackson had orchestrated a plan to frame me for infidelity, all in a bid to secure a divorce. Samuel was roped into fabricating evidence to support this scheme. There were two motives driving Jackson's deceitful agenda. Firstly, he coveted our house, fearing the potential loss of his parents-in-law's property. Jackson saw cohabiting with his parents as the easiest solution, but my resistance to the idea led him to devise a plan to oust me and claim the property. Secondly, Jackson was involved in an affair of his own, spending weekends with his mistress while pretending to discuss matters with my parents-in-law. His infatuation with her led him to view me, his wife, as an impediment. By framing me for infidelity, he hoped to secure both the house and compensation in the divorce settlement. Despite my perception of Jackson's lack of astuteness, his cunning nature in orchestrating such a devious plan was truly despicable. As I muttered my disdain, Samuel offered his apologies. However, I had no intention of aiding Jackson in his malicious scheme. I feigned cooperation, all the while plotting to turn the tables on him. Samuel, Leveraging his expertise in real estate, offered various suggestions. Eventually, he proposed a daring move. You should sell the house while Jackson is away on his trip. And so, when Jackson returned, bewildered by the news of the sale, I delivered the final blow. I know everything, Jackson. Samuel recorded everything, including your attempt to frame me for cheating with him. If we proceed with divorce, I can claim alimony and take you to court, I declared, relishing the shock that registered on Jackson's face. Why? Why? He stammered. But I wasn't finished. I had one last card to play. You might not have realized, but Samuel isn't just any new employee. He's the son of the company's CEO. I emphasized, incredulous at Jackson's obliviousness. Didn't you notice Samuel shares the same last name as the CEO? How did that escape your notice? I pressed, my frustration mounting. Well, Samuel's last name isn't exactly uncommon, Jackson attempted to rationalize. Are you serious right now? I couldn't believe his lack of awareness. Yes, I'm serious, Jackson replied, his shock palpable. The realization dawned on him slowly. Samuel's company was one of Jackson's most crucial clients, and they had played a significant role in handling his family's property matters. If news of this deceit reached the CEO, Jackson would undoubtedly find himself in hot water. In fact, Samuel had likely already reported the situation. Look, fine, I'll check it out. But if you're lying, I'll figure it out. Jackson relented before abruptly ending the call. It didn't take long for him to realize the gravity of his actions. Subsequently, the real estate company owned by Samuel's father refused to engage in any business dealings with Jackson or offer him advice regarding his family property. With my house sold, Jackson had no option but to return to his family home following his business trip. Fortunately, Samuel had assisted me in finding an affordable apartment, so I encountered no difficulties. As I initiated the divorce proceedings, Jackson persisted in reaching out to me. I'm sorry, Olivia. Please forgive me, he pleaded. It's too late for apologies now. You tried to manipulate me using someone else. Why should I believe anything you say? I countered. Don't say that. After our divorce, you can be with that other woman, right? That's what you wanted, isn't it? He suggested, attempting to deflect blame. Yeah, she had someone else she liked and dumped me. What a sorry tale. But just because of that, don't expect me to change my mind and come running back to you. I muttered as I ended the call with a heavy sigh. Despite not disclosing my current address to him in hopes of keeping him at bay, Jackson's incessant calls persisted. Each time he pleaded, please don't leave me. I'll change. I'll be a better husband. Yet I was weary of his hollow promises. Once the divorce is finalized, I'll delete his number, block him on WhatsApp, and sever ties completely. To make matters worse, even my mother-in-law reached out, begging, please, Olivia, we'll be lost without you. It's not me you wanted, it's the house, right? But there's no house left, I reminded her. It wasn't just about the house. We're not that heartless. Come back, and you'll understand, she implored. You wanted the money, didn't you? I shot back, frustration seeping into my voice. That's not true. You're being unfair. You attempted to coerce me into living with you, and when I refused, Jackson resorted to deceit to gain leverage in the divorce. I can't trust someone who resorts to such tactics, I asserted firmly. It's obvious you're only interested in money. I continued to rebuff their pleas. Then my father-in-law called, his tone dripping with arrogance. Isn't it your duty as a daughter-in-law to assist my wife a little? Are you seriously refusing? Isn't all of this a consequence of the debts you've accumulated? I countered, my resolve unwavering. In response, his voice on the phone grew so loud that it hurt my ears. You heartless woman. Abandoning your mother-in-law in her time of need and shifting blame onto her. I'll teach you a lesson, you wicked woman. With that, I ended the call, shaken but determined. Armed with the recorded audio, I sought counsel from my lawyer. As it transpired, my father-in-law's words constituted a threat. Armed with this evidence, I informed Jackson that I'd pursue legal action if he didn't agree to the divorce. In a panic, Jackson reluctantly consented to the divorce. Finally, I was free from the clutches of that outrageous family. After the divorce, Jackson's reputation at work suffered, leading to a loss of trust and diminished responsibilities. Additionally, the unresolved debt forced him to sell his family home at a steep discount. Now, he resides in a modest apartment with his parents, grappling with a reduced salary and the burden of supporting his family. To compound his challenges, he is obligated to pay me alimony. Learning about Jackson's struggles firsthand from Samuel, who remained a confidant, I discovered an opportunity to leverage my customer service skills from my previous role at a clothing store. Samuel, now working in the HR department of a real estate company, recommended me for a position that required strong communication abilities. After careful consideration and discussions with Samuel, I accepted the offer and transitioned to the real estate company. Throughout this transition, Samuel and I maintained our close bond, which eventually blossomed into a romantic relationship. After a year of dating, we tied the knot, and I became the spouse of the future company president. Jackson likely never envisioned that the two individuals he attempted to falsely accuse of infidelity would ultimately find love and marry each other. Now surrounded by my supportive new family, including my in-laws, I look forward to building a beautiful life together with Samuel.
I'm driving the car home, so you'll have to walk from the airport. You're always busy with chores and glued to the computer, so you probably need some exercise, huh? It'll take you around 3 hours to get back, so just hang in there. Kyle's words had a harsh edge to them. Once he jumped in the car, he ordered me out, his smirk dripping with contempt, like a kid playing a prank. Kyle was clearly enjoying himself. Faced with his sarcasm, I managed a weak smile and retorted, "It won't take 3 hours, will it? You're sending me back home, right? What's with the drama? Who said anything about 3 hours? It's just a 9-minute walk to my new place." Kyle laughed heartily, clearly not buying my story. His laughter filled the car, mocking me, yet also revealing his doubt. There were all sorts of people around us. Businessmen in suits, families, elderly couples, young women, each with their own agenda. But Kyle, lost in his laughter, paid them no mind. It was like he was in his own world inside the car, oblivious to the hustle and bustle outside. He kept laughing, seemingly joyful, but with a hint of darkness. Alice stopped trying to make me laugh. Do you really expect me to believe such an obvious lie? Quit the nonsense and start walking. It'll be dark soon if you don't hurry. Well, if you're so sure, why don't you come and see for yourself? It might wipe that smile off your face. But honestly, whether you believe me or not, it doesn't bother me at all. Fine. If you're that confident, prove it. But remember, there'll be consequences if you're lying, I challenged. Kyle's irritation was evident as his face twisted in annoyance, his brows furrowing. Kyle's irritation boiled over, his voice booming in the car, drawing surprised looks from those around us. Instead of feeling intimidated, I nearly burst into laughter, knowing Kyle was about to face his own nightmare. With renewed determination, I set off towards my new home. 9 minutes later, Kyle and I stood before an ordinary 12-story apartment building, 3 years old, with a view of departing planes. Kyle seemed taken aback by the building, but quickly masked his surprise with nonchalance. Alice, just admit it. You're lying about moving, aren't you? Stop before you get in trouble for trespassing. Stop fussing and come inside, I replied, though Kyle remained skeptical, following me with a dismissive grunt. Yet, as we rode the elevator to the 5th floor, I sensed unease in his eyes and tension around his mouth. His profile hinted at hidden concerns. Upon reaching the 5th floor and unlocking the apartment door, Kyle's facade crumbled. Anxiety gripped him, and he struggled to maintain confidence, which only made his fear more apparent. As the door swung open, Kyle began to tremble uncontrollably, his face a mixture of shock and fear. I couldn't contain my satisfaction seeing Kyle's reaction. It seemed like he was finally facing reality. "Why are my parents here?" Kyle exclaimed as we faced my angry in-laws. Their red faces hinted at the seriousness of the situation. "You were supposed to be on a trip today. Why are you here, Kyle?" "We set up a fake plan to catch you. We're siding with Alice." Despite their explanation, Kyle looked utterly bewildered. Why go to all this trouble? Why punish me like this? Kyle must have been flooded with questions. Sitting cautiously in front of his parents, he sought clarification, but confusion still clouded his expression. Can someone explain clearly? I don't understand this ambush and punishment. Stop lying, Kyle. We saw everything. How you left Alice at the airport to walk home. My father-in-law interjected, showing Kyle his smartphone screen. Kyle's eyes widened, sweat beading on his forehead within seconds. The screen showed our exchange at the airport, capturing the moment vividly. Kyle's mocking and loud voice echoed through the video. His expression shifted drastically as he watched, mouth tight, eyes avoiding the screen, realization dawning. Kyle trembled visibly, sweat glistening on his skin. My father-in-law quietly pocketed his phone, his gaze heavy with anger and disappointment. Tension filled the room. I can't believe Dad recorded this. When did you even film it? Kyle stammered, his voice strained. It was at the airport earlier. We've been watching all along while you were in the car. My father-in-law replied calmly. At the airport, amidst the bustling crowd, Kyle's parents and I had strategically placed ourselves to witness the events firsthand. Kyle had walked straight into my trap, unaware. His parents observed him silently, the room heavy with anticipation. Finally, my mother-in-law broke the silence. Kyle, we're shocked. How could you leave your spouse stranded at the airport like that? It was just a heated argument. I didn't mean any harm. Kyle mumbled, his voice trailing off. It's true, abandoning the woman you love isn't right. Kyle, why are you laughing? Is this a joke? Kyle's father interrupted, his mother's glare intensifying. In that moment, Kyle froze, his face draining of color, like a deer caught in headlights. The room filled with a heavy, tense silence. Sensing the disappointment more than anger in his parents' expressions, I realized they held high expectations for Kyle. He had always been responsible and dedicated, facing challenges head-on. Everyone admired his character and expected great things from him. Yet beneath that facade was the reality of how he treated me, his wife. The revelation that their beloved son had mistreated his spouse was difficult for them to comprehend. Feeling their emotions, I knew it was time to reveal the truth to Kyle. Despite his father's stern gaze and his mother's subdued anger, I began to speak. Kyle, I've been struggling for a while now. Just 6 months into our marriage, you changed. You were always away on business trips, neglecting us. Then the bullying started, and I couldn't understand why until I discovered the truth. You've been having an affair. I've told your parents not only about the bullying but also about the affair. At the mention of the affair, Kyle's shocked silence shattered, his gaze piercing through me, almost causing me to falter. But Kyle's parents stepped in. Hold on, Kyle. I'll admit to the bullying. I may have gone too far at times. I didn't realize it then, but if it hurt you, Alice, I'm sorry. However, I haven't cheated. You should have evidence before making such serious accusations. I don't have evidence right now, but it's clear you're cheating, just like your father said. Denying it won't make it go away. Wouldn't it be better to come clean now and prevent more pain? What? Accusing me without proof? You're going to confuse my parents? Kyle protested, his usual defensive pattern emerging when his position was challenged. As the tension rose, the rest of us remained calm. I'll say it again. Denying it won't help, because I already know everything. I may not have proof now, but there's a witness. I'll call her here. Just wait. After the call, the intercom buzzed, and within 3 minutes, as the person entered, Kyle froze as if time had stopped. She's the witness. Her name is Karen. But Kyle, you probably recognize her, right? She's your affair partner. Karen has seen your true colors. She was at the airport with your parents. Wait, Karen? Why is she here? I didn't know about this, Kyle exclaimed. Through my investigation, I had discovered Kyle's affair with Karen, an employee from a client company. I had secretly contacted Karen, and our conversation revealed that Kyle had kept his marital status hidden from her during their relationship. Karen believed they were serious, and she was deeply shocked to learn of Kyle's deception. Naturally, Karen couldn't stomach Kyle's lies, so I arranged for her to be at the airport to confront him. When Kyle caught sight of my new apartment, a subtle grimace crossed his face, not because of its location, but because Karen lived in the same building. Kyle probably never imagined I'd be in touch with Karen, which explained his feeble attempt to appear confident. However, His facade crumbled under scrutiny. In fact, my move to this apartment was calculated to bring me closer to Karen. Kyle, even my picking you up from the airport today was part of the plan to expose your true self. While I may not have physical evidence, Karen herself has confessed to the affair, I informed Kyle, a mixture of scorn and disdain coloring my words as I revealed the truth to my unsuspecting husband who had underestimated me. Kyle ended up revealing his true colors all on his own. He probably thought I was just a stay-at-home wife with a computer hobby, assuming his affair would never come to light. It's almost pathetic, really, how I didn't see through it until after we were married, blinded by the idea of a perfect marriage. But now, the truth is crystal clear. Kyle has done something unforgivable. He deceived me, his parents, and Karen, and even when confronted, he tried to deny it all. All Kyle can do now is own up to his mistakes and apologize as soon as possible. There's no way out of this. Denying it will only make things worse for him. Alice, don't you think you're going too far? Surveillance at the airport, an ambush at our new home, and moving into the same building as Karen all over an affair seems extreme, Kyle protested. You don't understand, Kyle. While you might see it as just an affair, your actions have warranted this extreme response. You cheated with Karen, bullied me, and made life unbearable, all while hiding your true self from your own parents. It's time for you to face the reality of what you've done, I said firmly, meeting Kyle's gaze with unwavering clarity. His parents and Karen, echoing my sentiments, fixed stern looks on Kyle. My plan unfolded exactly as intended, catching Kyle off guard and leaving him with no excuses. Slowly, he began to apologize. I'm so sorry. Karen was so beautiful and young, I couldn't resist lying to win her over. Everything Alice said about the bullying and wanting a divorce is true. I wanted Alice to be the one to initiate it, Kyle admitted, but before he could finish, my father-in-law erupted in rage. Without warning, he hoisted Kyle into the air, Kyle's legs flailing as he struggled. When was the last time you actually talked to Alice, Kyle? She wanted to support you in every way, even starting her work from home for your sake, and yet you, Kyle, was dropped abruptly, coughing and turning his gaze towards me. Since Kyle changed, there had been no meaningful conversation between us. He had stopped listening to anything I said. Even when I talked about my work from home, he dismissed it as just a housewife's hobby. You've not only lied to Alice, Kyle, but also to Karen, deceiving and potentially ruining the life of a young woman, my father-in-law added sternly. What a foolish thing to do, my mother-in-law said, her voice trembling as if she might burst into tears. And then there was Kyle, trembling himself, seemingly coming to a realization. His repeated apologies of "I'm so sorry" made it feel like we were dealing with a completely different person, showing genuine remorse. Though still angry, the in-laws appeared slightly relieved that Kyle was sincerely apologizing. Alice, it's all my fault. I know it's unforgivable, but I'm asking for a fresh start from today. Can we try again? Kyle apologized to me, his words silencing the room. However, my next actions shocked everyone. Kyle, you're such a joke to your father, mother, and Karen. Isn't Kyle just ridiculous? My laughter filled the room, even louder than Kyle's at the airport, leaving everyone puzzled. It may have seemed bizarre, but knowing everything, I couldn't help but laugh. As my laughter subsided, I pulled out a thick envelope from my bag and tossed it at Kyle. What's this? Kyle hastily grabbed the envelope, sensing something ominous. With a nervous swallow, he cautiously checked its contents. The moment he did, he trembled so violently it seemed the room itself shook. That's the result of a separate investigation into your affairs, Kyle. Besides Karen, you were seeing other women during your travels, I revealed. So essentially, these are your local wives across different regions. My father-in-law questioned incredulously. Local wives? Kyle, were you planning to deceive us even further? Kyle's supposedly sincere apology was just a facade to prevent yet another affair from being exposed. His promises of change were nothing but lies. Perhaps he believed if he could just get through this moment, everything else would somehow sort itself out. If so, he was truly foolish. Kyle, all you can do now is get a divorce and pay alimony. I never want to see your face again, so let's handle the rest through our lawyers. Don't try to fool me. You claimed there was no evidence, yet you deceived me. Who deceived whom first? Do you finally understand how it feels to be deceived? Damn it, Alice. You'll regret this, you know. A mere housewife like you won't survive on your own. Don't you dare come crawling back to me. Kyle abandoned his facade and approached menacingly, but his threats seemed laughable to me. It would be Kyle who would regret his actions, yet he left our new home with those final words, oblivious to what lay ahead. The tension in the room dissipated, and we all took a seat simultaneously. My in-laws and Karen offered heartfelt apologies. Alice, we're so sorry for everything. It's our fault for not realizing sooner and causing you such distress. And Karen, we've troubled you deeply. We'll make sure Kyle takes responsibility. Just wait. We'll pursue him relentlessly if necessary. Please, everyone, no need for apologies. Thank you for supporting my plan. Kyle deserves to face the consequences, but there's no need for an extensive pursuit. He'll definitely reach out to us, without a doubt. My in-laws and Karen glanced at me with a slight smile, puzzled by my confidence. They hadn't fully grasped my plan yet, but it wasn't because of overconfidence or denial. It was a certainty I held deep within. I'll say it again. Kyle knows nothing, and I know everything. I could see the path Kyle was heading down clearly. My intention was to watch silently until he faced the consequences of his actions. A month had passed since then. I sat at my computer in our new home, the gentle breeze outside rustling the trees. The serene silence was interrupted by my phone vibrating. The 100th missed call, all from my ex-husband. Taking a deep breath, I answered. As I held the smartphone to my ear, I could hear my ex-husband's voice, a mix of surprise, anxiety, and a glimmer of hope. Finally, you pick up. Why are you ignoring me when I'm in such trouble? Oh, you're in trouble, huh? What happened? I was deceived. One of these local wives turned out to be a scam artist. She took all my money, and now I'm being chased by some scary guys. It's really bad. That sounds tough. Good luck with that. Hey, don't hang up, please. I'm begging you. Just a little help. I've got no money, can't go home. I'm done for without you. Who said, don't come to me with regrets, never come crying back? I knew everything, including the fact you were being deceived, but I chose not to say anything. I thought it was pointless to tell you anything he wouldn't understand without experiencing the consequences firsthand. His voice faded from the call. Perhaps now, Kyle regretted his actions, but I refused to assist him. People like him couldn't grasp others' pain without facing it themselves. You only think of yourself. That's why you're in this situation. I have work to do, so don't call me again. What work? It's just your hobby. I didn't want to have to say this, but my annual income surpasses yours, Kyle. I found success as a web novelist along with my blog, YouTube channel, and more. I can manage just fine on my own. What? You earn more than me. Wait, can you lend me a little money then? My ex-husband rambled, but I hung up and promptly blocked his number. His selfishness left me sighing deeply until the end. Later, I learned from my in-laws about his situation. Realizing he couldn't rely on me, he turned to them for help. However, they were already aware of his predicament and were furious once again. Despite their anger, he continued making excuses, resulting in his parents disarming him. With nowhere to turn, he fled, changing jobs and relocating. However, it seemed the threatening men pursued him to his new location. He even sought refuge near his parents' home at one point, sending messages of regret and reflection. But it was too late. His actions had consequences, and he bore the weight of that truth.
Hey, I expected you to be smarter, lady, Mark said with a mean look, leaning back in his chair. You're married to Nick, but you're not very good at stuff. Nick had a rough marriage with you, Mark laughed. Now give me the checkbook. If you don't, we're splitting up. Fine, but you'll be sorry, I replied. Mark didn't seem to get what I meant. He just grinned and said, no, I won't. Mark seems to have gotten it all wrong. I've got a plan to keep him from getting his hands on Nick's money. I'm Karen, 35 years old. My life was happy until 3 years ago when my husband, Nick, died in a car crash. Since then, I've been heartbroken and struggling to move on. Mark, who was Nick's best friend, has been a huge support. He took me out, suggested movies, and did everything to help me feel better. Thanks to him, I started to heal. Now, 3 years later, I'm thankful for Mark's kindness. But then Mark surprised me one day by proposing. Karen, will you marry me? He asked. I know it's complicated because of Nick, but don't you think it's time to focus on your own happiness? It's been 3 years since Nick's passing, and I feel like I've finally started to heal, thanks largely to Mark's support. I hadn't seriously thought about moving on until now, maybe because of the guilt I felt towards Nick. But when Mark proposed, something clicked. Could being with Mark bring happiness to both of us, and even to Nick? I'll make you happy, for both of us, including Nick, Mark promised, looking me in the eye. I chose to believe him. Okay, I trust you. Thank you. And so, I agreed to marry Mark. At first, married life with Mark was great. Following his wishes, I became a homemaker and focused on taking care of the household. Mark would always message me after work, eager to know what's for dinner and rush home. Even though it was my second marriage, our early days together were filled with happiness. Mark often pitched in with chores on his days off, and there were no complaints. I hoped this blissful life would continue. Things took a turn for the worse after about 6 months. It was around 11 p.m. when Mark finally got home. You're late again. I've asked you to let me know when you'll be late, I reminded him. Got invited out suddenly, he brushed it off. What could I do? You could have just gone to bed. And texting would have been enough. I need to get dinner ready, it's not that big of a deal. Stop nagging as soon as I walk in, he snapped, heading straight to the bathroom. He's been coming home late a lot lately, not just today. And there's no communication from him, not even a call or text. He says he's at a work event, but I wonder if he really needs to go, especially on his days off. He doesn't help with chores anymore. You should at least pitch in on your days off, I tell him. He doesn't bother to respond, saying, why should I work on my days off? That's your job. Figure it out yourself. But the biggest worry is our finances. Mark gets me what's left of his salary after his own expenses, but lately, that amount keeps getting smaller. This month, it was significantly less. When I asked about it, Mark casually said, oh, I gave some to my mom, that's why. How much did you give her? Around $1,000? I questioned, feeling frustrated. $1,000? I already said last month that giving her $800 was too much. We can't afford to be so generous. I insisted, my tone becoming firmer. If you subtract your allowance from that, we won't have enough for our own expenses. If she says she needs it, there's nothing I can do. Use your savings to cover the difference, Mark replied casually. What do you mean by or something? Why don't you find a part-time job or something? You're always just lounging around at home. You should do some work, I fired back. I became a full-time homemaker at Mark's request. His harsh words shocked me. But I realized we needed extra income to make ends meet. Reluctantly, I started looking for a job. Luckily, I found a part-time job with short hours, so it didn't interfere much with my routine. One day, I came home late from work to find the front door unlocked. Peering inside, I saw Mark was already home. Mark, you're back already? I exclaimed, surprised to find him at home. He spun around with a start, hastily concealing something behind his back. Hey, what were you just hiding? I asked, suspicion creeping in. Nothing, just forget about it. Mark quickly dismissed, but I wasn't convinced. You were hiding something. I persisted, snatching something from Mark's hand and realizing it was my bank book. What were you doing with this? I demanded, feeling a surge of anger. Just checking something. Give it back, Mark said, trying to take it from me. You've saved up quite a bit, huh? I had no idea, he remarked, flipping through the pages. You always say we're short on money, I argued, feeling betrayed. What's going on? All this money should go to my mom, Mark stated casually, interrupting me. Huh? That's not. I began, shocked by his bold request. It's only right to give such a large amount to my mom, he insisted, acting like it was the most reasonable thing ever. Why should I give your mom my money? I objected, feeling my anger rise. Since when is the wife's money the mother-in-law's money? Don't you know that? Give me the bank book now, he demanded, his tone getting more aggressive. No way. This money is mine, I declared, holding onto the bank book tightly. I fled from Mark, who was trying to snatch the bank book from me, and locked myself in the bedroom. While Mark banged on the door, demanding the bank book, I couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal and anger. As I wrestled with what to do next, the only solution that seemed clear was to divorce Mark. I wondered, if Nick were here, what would he advise? The thought of Nick's absence hit me hard, and I couldn't help but cry. That money had to stay away from Mark, no matter what. I swiftly stashed the bank book in a locked suitcase and waited for Mark to come back. But he didn't return that day. Night fell, and I drifted off to sleep. When I woke the next morning, Mark still hadn't returned. With a clearer head than the night before, I knew I couldn't keep living like this. I refused to hand over the bank book to Mark. He had insulted not only me but also Nick. I couldn't forgive him. Gathering only the essentials, I waited for Mark's return. Finally, when he did show up, he seemed surprised to find me awake. "Where have you been?" I questioned, my voice steady but firm. "I went to my parents' place. Just came back from the real estate agent," he answered casually. "The real estate agent? With your $300,000? I asked, my suspicion growing. "I bought a new house for my mom. It's a brand new single-family home," Mark declared proudly, expecting me to go along with it. "Huh? Give me the bank book now. If not, we're getting a divorce," he demanded, his tone becoming stern. "I get it. Oh. Are you talking about splitting up?" "That's okay with me," I said calmly, surprising Mark. "Wait, what?" Mark was shocked, not expecting me to be so okay with it. Did he think I'd just give him access to our money if he mentioned divorce? "All right, but you'll be sorry," I warned. When I said that, Mark probably didn't understand what I really meant. He just smirked and said sure, whatever. Anyway, I went to the bedroom to grab the bags I'd packed. Mark was wrong if he thought he'd get half of our stuff, around $15,000, but he was wrong. There was no way he'd get that much money from me. But just letting him off easy for insulting Nick wasn't enough. I came up with a better plan. It would teach Mark a lesson if he experienced what he put others through. I put my bank book back in the kitchen drawer, grabbed my bags, and said, "I'll send you the divorce papers later. Don't mess with my stuff. I'll move it when I can." Mark seemed suspicious of my careful planning, but I left anyway. I booked a room in a nearby business hotel and decided to stay there for about a week. During my time at the hotel, I found a rental apartment that was good for living alone. After sorting out the rental agreement, I started moving right away. I came back to the house while Mark was out in the afternoon to move my stuff. When I checked the bank book I left in the drawer, money had been taken out, leaving $150,000 behind, just like I expected. Mark probably used half for himself and bought a new house for his mom, but he regretted it later. I got the divorce papers from City Hall, filled them out, and sent them to Mark. But even after a week, then 2 weeks, they hadn't reached City Hall. And I couldn't reach Mark on the phone. After nagging him for a while, Mark finally answered, sounding annoyed. "Can you hurry up and send the divorce papers to City Hall?" "Divorce papers? Oh, I'll send them in next week," I said casually. "And you took money from my bank account, didn't you?" "That's illegal without my permission," Mark accused. "Idiot. It's not illegal to take money from a family member's account. Plus, half of it would be mine after the divorce, so it's fair." "I'm hanging up now," I said firmly, and I ended the call. Later on, it seemed Mark had finally sent the divorce papers to City Hall. When I checked, Mark and I were officially divorced. A month later, I was at work. The place where I worked part-time was offering full-time positions, and I applied. They accepted me. I heard some noise near the entrance, so I went to see what was happening. To my surprise, Mark and his mom were arguing with the receptionist. I rushed over and asked, "What's going on?" When I spoke, they turned to me urgently. "Karen, we've been searching for you. Please listen," Mark begged. "Please, Karen, forgive us," his mom added, sounding shaky. As they began to argue loudly, I somehow managed to calm them down. I told my boss about the situation, and we decided to talk things out at a nearby cafe. "What's going on?" I asked, feeling uneasy about the surprise encounter. With worried expressions, they started to explain frantically about the money. "I withdrew money from your account. It turns out it doesn't count as marital property. That money is..." Mark's voice trailed off, and I let out a huge sigh of disbelief. "That's what I've been saying all along. That was my own money. It was the life insurance payout when Nick passed away. We didn't know. We're really sorry. We'll try to give the money back somehow." "Can you not cause a big scene about this?" Mark pleaded. "You're right. You wouldn't want this blown out of proportion either, right?" I replied, feeling frustrated and resigned. "Let's settle this peacefully. Is that all you came to say?" As soon as I said that, their faces turned frantic. "Just that. I already figured it out when you took the money from the bank. How did you manage it?" Don't tell me you think I didn't notice. I pressed on. Well, we had to do it because we needed the money, Mark stammered, clearly struggling to explain. Here's what likely happened. You can't withdraw $150,000 all at once from an ATM. It would take too long. So they probably tried to withdraw it from the counter, but for large sums, a power of attorney from the account holder is needed. I guess my mother-in-law wrote that power of attorney and she probably pretended to be me when the bank called for confirmation. Essentially, my mother-in-law impersonated me. This is clearly illegal, and yet they were still trying to cover it up. There's no way I can forgive this, I said firmly, cutting off Mark's attempts to plead for forgiveness. Lawyers have been coming to the office, employees are staring, and my boss is asking questions. My job is on the line. If things get worse, I might have to quit, and I won't find another job easily. Please let's settle this without going to court, Mark begged, desperation clear in his voice. My husband told me we're getting a divorce. I was just dazzled by the idea of a new house. It was a rash decision. I did find solace in this man after Nick's death. Maybe I could forgive him if he was sincere, but he also insulted Nick. If not for that, things wouldn't have gone this far, I thought to myself, feeling torn. It's out of my hands now. Our next meeting will be in court, I declared, standing up to leave. Wait, Karen, please. Mark and his mother pleaded, kneeling in the cafe. But I ignored them and walked out. In the end, they were in the wrong, and they ended up facing a hefty lawsuit for me, leading to a significant debt for Mark and my former mother-in-law. The $150,000 withdrawn from my account was returned by my former father-in-law out of his own pocket. The new house they bought was sold off, but it only covered some of the cost. Mark, unfortunately, lost his job and struggled to find another one in this tough economy. He ended up working as a live-in security guard, surviving on cheap sandwiches and barely making ends meet while paying off his debt. My former father-in-law separated from my former mother-in-law, who now lives in a modest apartment and works part-time jobs to get by. On the other hand, I've been enjoying my life, working steadily at my job. Although I'm single again after the divorce, I see it as a fresh start. Recently, a kind and caring man has entered my life. I'm taking things slowly to avoid repeating past mistakes, but I can't help but feel hopeful about this new relationship.
A wife works like a maid for her husband. If she doesn't listen to him, they might get divorced. I'm really mad, I told someone. My husband Tom took my special credit card and spent lots of money without asking me. He knew I was busy with work. They're on a vacation overseas. I feel really disrespected. I didn't answer Tom's phone call. Instead, I started planning how to get back at him. I'm Holly Smith. I used to be a famous actress in the USA. People all over the world love me, and I even made it big in Hollywood. I was famous for many years. But then I got married to Tom, who used to be my manager and helper. He took care of everything for me, from my health to my personal life. He's still helping me with my fashion stores now. I quit acting 10 years ago when I was 21. When I decided to stop acting while I was still really famous, it caused a big stir in the media. Fans were coming to my house, and I was getting tons of letters begging me to keep going. Despite all the gossip and rumors, Tom and I got married happily, and everyone was supportive. Just before I quit acting, I started my own fashion brand. Now, Tom works for me in finance, and I focus on running the business, making sure our models do well. Everything seemed great, but lately Tom's been acting strange. He looks tired and defeated all the time at home. Tom, what's going on? You don't seem yourself. Is something wrong at work? I knew he didn't like talking about his problems, so I always checked in on him. It could be tiring, but he always helped me with my problems too, so I didn't mind. Even though I often felt annoyed, I always valued Tom's efforts. You know, I'm tired of always being in the background, doing what you want, he suddenly said, surprising me. What's going on? You've never said anything like this before. I responded. Tom would sometimes vent his frustrations at me, but it was because he was stressed from work. He acted tough at his job, so maybe he had nowhere else to let off steam. I remembered how I used to snap at him when I was an actress, so I could empathize with how he felt. Still, his words caught me off guard, and I felt my voice trembling as I replied. I've been holding back. You're always busy, and I'm just here supporting you. Even though Tom earned more than most people, he was still just an employee in our company. I made more money, but I never thought it mattered who earned more in a marriage. His words surprised me. Even when you're home, you're always focused on work and hardly pay attention to me. When we go shopping, you just buy whatever you want. How do you think that makes me feel? Tom looked dissatisfied, his lips pressed together like a frustrated child. Honestly, his words irritated me. Most of our household expenses came from my income. His salary was his to spend as he pleased. As I reminded him, it was my way of thanking him for all his support and hard work. There were times when Tom supported me financially, especially when we didn't have much money. I wanted to thank him for all the times he put his own needs aside for me, even until I retired. It hurt to hear him sound ungrateful. The things I buy come from the savings I manage. If anything, I'm the one making sacrifices, I thought angrily. Holly, you have too much free time. I want more time off and to travel leisurely. The salary's good since I joined your company, but I never have time, he complained. When I left acting and started my own business, Tom said he'd keep managing actors. But when my business did well, he wanted to work with me. If I work with you, Holly, you won't be lonely. I want to be there for you, he said. I wanted to spend time with him, so I let him join. I never asked him to, so why was he acting like this? Wasn't our life good enough for him? Wasn't he being too selfish? As I thought this, Tom asked for time off to celebrate his parents' 60th anniversary. Can I have 2 weeks off to take them on a trip to Japan? He asked. They've never been, and I want to show them the tasty food and beautiful sights, he said. I braced myself for his response, but his request surprised me, leaving me feeling uneasy. 2 weeks off seemed like a simple request he could easily make it work without causing any trouble. Our company was fair, and taking time off wasn't usually a problem. Yet here he was, making a big deal about it and negotiating directly with me. Something felt off, but I couldn't pinpoint what. I tried to push aside my irritation and replied calmly, I'm fine with that, but it won't work this year. I have important events lined up, like a fashion show, and preparing for the Paris collection. Maybe we can plan it for next year when my schedule is more flexible. I want to be there for my in-laws' celebration, but work is really busy this year. I suggested a different date, but Tom refused with a smile. It's okay, we'll celebrate with my family. I just want some quality family time, he said. His words stung, suggesting that I was a burden. So, what do you think? Don't I deserve some time off too? Tom often spoke without thinking, and while it was one of his flaws, I accepted him as my partner, flaws and all. But I couldn't ignore how his words hurt me, even if he didn't mean it. Why does he talk to me like this? Doesn't he care about me? As I pondered, Tom interrupted, Hey Holly, are you listening to me? I owe a lot to Tom's parents. Even though I couldn't visit them often because of work, Tom's parents always treated me like their own daughter and praised my work. We're so lucky to have such a wonderful daughter, his mother said when I married into the family, and his father celebrated our marriage with joy. It was their 60th anniversary celebration, and I understood their desire to celebrate it this year. But how could I agree happily after being spoken to like that? It doesn't matter to me, take 1 week or 2, do as you like. I couldn't hide my anger and let it show. This seemed to upset Tom. He got up, visibly upset, and left the room without a word. We had been sleeping in separate bedrooms due to work, and from that day until his trip, we didn't see each other at all. Is that really true? Isn't your husband being too harsh? My secretary, noticing my unusual behavior the day Tom left for his trip, pressed me for details. She's an exceptional talent and has been supporting me since I started managing the company. As women, we often see eye to eye, and sometimes she's even more reliable than my husband. She's quick-witted yet caring, always there to support me when I'm down or about to make a mistake. I cherish her like family. She admires me like a real sister, and I often confide in her. Her honest and mature advice, beyond her years, is always valuable. And this time too, she noticed something was off about me and kindly showed concern. I hesitated at first about opening up, but realized keeping it in could affect my work. I decided to tell her everything that happened up to today. She furrowed her brow in anger. If I were you, I'd have given him a piece of my mind. You've been too soft on your husband, boss. I get that you love him, but you can't let him walk all over you. Her blunt advice, making me wonder who's older, hit me hard. In an environment where everyone tends to hold back from telling me things, she's the only one who treats me as an equal. I really appreciate her directness and the ease we have in our conversations. Being in a higher position often requires humility and restraint, so having someone who can speak honestly with me like she does is incredibly valuable. You're right. What should I do? I asked. Can't you call him? Why not talk after work today? Don't worry about ruining his trip. If things keep going like this, you might end up getting divorced. She urged me, sounding like an older sister, leaving me with no choice but to agree. As she suggested, I plan to call him right after work. He's in Japan, so there's a significant time difference of about 15 hours from the US. For example, if it's 5 o'clock p.m. here, it's 8 o'clock a.m. there, which should be around breakfast time. I had sent him an email earlier to let him know I needed to talk, so he should be expecting my call. I tried calling, hoping he would answer, but there was no response. Maybe he's still busy with everyone. I'll try again later. Despite calling every 30 minutes, there was still no answer. Worried, I decided to contact my mother-in-law to check on him. Hello, Holly, you must be tired. I'm sorry we went on this trip without you. We wanted you to come, but Tom insisted otherwise, she said. I knew Tom's mother used to be strict, but now she's much more caring and always worries about my busy schedule. It's okay. We're swamped at the company this year, so I couldn't make it. I'll make it up to you next year, all right? I assured her. Oh, don't worry about it. Just having this wonderful trip as a gift from you is more than enough for us. Her kind words surprised me. Wait, a gift? I asked, confused. She seemed surprised by my question, and then explained that Tom told them the trip was paid for by me since I couldn't join. I was shocked to hear this news. What? I exclaimed over the phone. My mother-in-law realized I didn't know anything about it from my reaction and quickly clarified. Isn't this the trip wholly arranged? Tom paid for everything with Holly's card, so I thought it was from you. The trip included Tom's parents and his sister's family, 5 people in total. The flight alone cost about $1,000 per person minimum, not to mention other expenses, easily exceeding $10,000. It was outrageous to spend such a large amount without consulting me, especially since I usually cover living expenses. Tom doesn't gamble or smoke, so his salary should be intact. He definitely earns enough to afford such expenses, yet he didn't. With him not answering my calls, my anger started to boil. My mother-in-law noticed my distress and spoke with concern. Holly, are you all right? We'll reimburse every cent. Tom insisted on covering everything, which seemed strange to us. My husband and I decided we'll repay you later. We miss you and plan to visit soon. This trip might have been a mistake. With these words, my mother-in-law tried to reassure me. You're not to blame. It's also your 6th celebration, so please use that money for your enjoyment. I'll make sure Tom pays you back, but could you tell me more about how the trip was planned? I'm curious about what Tom was thinking. It dawned on me that this trip must have been meticulously planned months ago, and Tom was using me without my knowledge. In that moment, suspicions about him started to creep in. Then my mother-in-law shared a shocking revelation. The trip was actually suggested by Tom's sister and her husband. To my surprise, it was Tom's sister and her husband, who had always criticized me, who initiated the trip. Tom's brother-in-law, an executive at my rival company. He looked down on me for being a female CEO because of his pride. Tom never stood up to his sister. The sight of Tom being so attentive to someone other than himself, especially M, must have caught my sister-in-law's attention, even though she's always had Tom under her thumb. I couldn't stand the fact that she could be offended by just a slightly friendly gesture from Tom. With their strong rivalry, my sister-in-law and her husband disliked me, and I tried my best to avoid dealing with them as much as possible. The couple, always competitive and disliking me, planned this trip, possibly convincing Tom to pick a fight and exclude me. They waited for the right moment to bring Tom along as a source of money. I'm sorry, I didn't know anything. Tom told me you were busy and asked us not to contact you directly. If my unsuspecting in-laws and I were to communicate, it would reveal the plan, potentially causing problems in our marriage. To prevent this, Tom had to restrict his parents' actions in advance. For my in-laws, who didn't understand how busy I was, Tom's advice was final. They decided to follow his instructions and express their gratitude when they returned. Holly, did you give Tom a card or something? He was paying with a black card I've never seen before, my father-in-law asked, sounding hurried as if he had been eavesdropping. He brought up something that had been on my mind the moment he mentioned a black card. I checked my safe. The black card he referred to was the company's crucial black card, accessible only by Tom and me, who knew the safe's password. I never imagined Tom would stoop to embezzlement, but the card that should have been there was missing. With Tom overseeing finance, it was easy for him to manipulate records and misuse company funds. When I realized this, my anger reached its peak, and I shared the story with my in-laws. They must have been shocked. My mother-in-law turned pale and panicked, saying, "What should we do? Are we involved in this embezzlement? We'll return with Tom immediately. We're just as guilty as he is, even if unknowingly. We'll face the consequences once we're back." My father-in-law, a man of strong responsibility, said. I shook my head, rejecting his words. This was all orchestrated by Tom's sister's family and Tom himself. My in-laws are not to blame. They were just manipulated by Tom. They're not at fault, but I can't let them off the hook. We don't need punishment, but could you help me with something? I've turned a blind eye to Tom's actions until now, and that's my fault. He's taking advantage of me, thinking he can get away with just an apology. This isn't just a marital issue, it's a company issue. We need to teach him a lesson. All right, we'll do whatever we can to help. So we began plotting a revenge plan. I was surprised by my own cunning, but my love for Tom had died. Now only hatred and anger surged through me. Initially, my in-laws were hesitant about this drastic plan, but they also felt responsible for Tom as his parents, and eventually they resolved to support me. As parents, they agreed to be my allies. Amidst this discussion, Tom unexpectedly called. I ended the call with my in-laws and answered Tom's. "What's up? We're enjoying a family-only trip. So what's this important talk about?" Tom's sarcastic tone only fueled my irritation. "You took your time calling. Did you go a little wild, huh?" "No way. Just having drinks at a nearby bar with Mom and Dad." This confirmed he was lying. I had just spoken to his parents, and there was no noise of a bar in the background. Besides, they had no reason to lie to me. His words erased all the time and trust we had built, and my feelings for him cooled entirely. "Oh, really? By the way, Tom, you haven't been tampering with the company's expenses, have you?" His demeanor instantly changed at my unexpected question. "What's that all about?" His usually light-hearted tone turned dead serious. Was this his true nature? Seeing his attitude shift as if he now saw me as an enemy, I faced him with equal firmness. "Just checking, since there will be an audit at the company soon. Are you suspecting me?" His defensive reaction betrayed his guilt. I couldn't help but chuckle at his feeble response. "What's the matter?" "I was just asking." "And now you're talking about suspicion. Have you done something wrong?" "No, anyway, the house better not be a mess when I get back, okay?" Realizing he was only making himself look more suspicious, he quickly changed the subject. His actions only served to raise more suspicion. I almost found his foolishness impressive. "Who knows? I've been busy with work too. Cut me some slack. I hate returning to a dirty house full of bugs. They say a wife is her husband's maid. Disobey and it's divorce. Even our executive says that to his wife. Looks like I might have to do the same, huh? You wouldn't want that, so keep the house clean." I had never seen him get along with the executive. His current words were likely his own thoughts, but aware of his weaker position, he used the third person to express them. His pitiful attempt made me sigh. "Sure, I'll keep that in mind." There was no need for further conversation. Tom clearly looked down on me, even resorting to embezzling company funds. Embezzlement is a serious crime, and I could report him to the police. No mercy, even for a spouse. But that alone wouldn't satisfy me. After ending the call with Tom, I immediately made a certain phone call. The next day, while busy preparing for the fashion show, I was bombarded with calls. Of course, it was Tom. I noticed his calls late at night while I was out for a reason, accompanied by my secretary. Luckily, she was driving, so I answered Tom's call. "You're late. What have you been doing?" His voice was more agitated than I'd ever heard, surprising both my secretary and me, who were listening on speaker. "What do you mean?" "I was working." "Did you do something yesterday?" "Do something like what?" "Don't play dumb. Tell me the truth. What did you do?" Tom was in complete panic, and in the background, I could hear several Japanese men confronting him, along with my sister-in-law and her husband. "Sounds noisy. Is everything okay?" "No, it's just..." Tom, who had been blustering, suddenly began to stammer. He realized that admitting anything would put him in a very disadvantageous position. His odd behavior prompted me to reveal what I had done the day before, as it was time to make him taste despair. Too bad, Tom. You were supposed to be having a blast in Japan. But it seems your dream turned into a nightmare overnight. Huh? But it's what you deserve for misusing someone else's money. You did something, didn't you? As he reacted strangely, I disclosed my actions from the previous day. I reached out to the president of the credit card company I had a long-standing relationship with, even though it was after hours. He agreed to assist me immediately. He promptly suspended the company's credit card. When a credit card is misused, the company isn't obligated to pay the store, leaving the store at a loss. However, since Tom had arranged to pay the entire bill at checkout, with the card blocked, he couldn't settle the payment and was now facing interrogation by the hotel receptionists. Tom, Mom, and Dad have already checked out. The taxi I arranged for them has left with them. So there's no one coming to pick you up. My sister-in-law, feeling trapped, bombarded Tom, asking what to do next. Hearing this, Tom panicked even more and directed his anger at me. How could you do this and think it's okay? Are you ready for a divorce? Fine. I'd rather not be married to someone who embezzles company funds. I've already spoken to a lawyer, and we're proceeding with divorce proceedings. What? Tom was visibly shaken by my calm demeanor. I've overlooked so much of your behavior, Tom. There was a time when you supported my work, and I appreciated that. But I've reached my limit. My patience has run out. That can't be. Realizing he was in a dire situation, Tom finally understood my anger and let out a pitiful cry. The receptionist relentlessly demanded payment from Tom and his group, who were now cornered in despair. But none of them could speak Japanese, relying on a guide for communication. Listening to their plight, I suggested switching the call to me. No one there speaks Japanese, right? Let me talk to them for you. You're going to help? Of course. Tom must have thought I had a change of heart. Realizing his mistake, without hesitation, he handed his phone to them. I explained the situation to the receptionist in Japanese, and they quickly understood, seeming quite cooperative. To alleviate their concerns, I also provided them with my contact information, which my secretary noted down. They happily agreed to my proposal. After a brief conversation, they returned the phone to Tom. What happened? Did you sort it out? Yes, I've taken care of it. Now it's up to you guys. Really? You're a lifesaver, Holly. I love you. He then hurried off, apparently called by the receptionists. Clueless, Tom ended the call and followed them. Are you sure about this? It probably won't end well. Exactly. It's perfect for them to experience some hardship. An hour later, as expected, I received a barrage of calls from Tom again. When I answered, Tom's voice was filled with pitiful anguish. Holly, what's happening here? Where are we? Explain yourself and come help us right now. Crying out, he showed me via video call the image of a slum area in Osaka, Japan. The sight was shocking. Tom and his sister's family were stripped of their belongings and in a pitiful state. Caught by those individuals, being taken to what's considered the most dangerous place in Japan was honestly unexpected. When I spoke to the receptionist, he mentioned, I'm a big fan of yours. I'll arrange a harsh punishment, just leave it to me, but I never anticipated it would be this severe. I couldn't help but laugh at the unexpected turn of events. You're lucky to be alive in Japan's most dangerous place. It's quite a miracle. What? Wait, Holly, what's going on? Explain yourself and come help us right now. Since it's a video call, they could probably hear everything clearly. Surrounding Tom and his group were homeless individuals, causing a stir. You folks caused trouble for Holly. Now face the consequences. Time to reflect. My in-laws chimed in, surprising everyone. What's going on? A friend of Holly flew us back on a private jet. We're back in the US and Holly picked us up. We realized you were trying to set Holly up. We told her to do whatever she wants with you guys. As they spoke, the onlookers behind them began confronting Tom's sister and her husband. The homeless folks were ruthless. If you had anything valuable, even women weren't spared. They were shouting while on the video call. In such a dangerous place, it's no wonder they became prime targets. I addressed the crowd in Japanese, telling them loudly that these men had used my card illegally and mistreated me. Every night, I urged them to do whatever they pleased with them. The locals, eager to join in, gladly agreed to make things difficult for them. Suddenly, the call ended, perhaps because someone grabbed the phone. Tom and his group were left in the dangerous neighborhood, terrorized daily, and treated like slaves by the locals. Without money to return to the U.S., they were essentially stuck abroad. I confirmed the subsequent events with the hotel reception. Apparently, an acquaintance of the receptionist was a boss in the area and agreed to take care of Tom and his group in exchange for me treating him to some good liquor next time, assuring me not to worry. The deal was made under the condition that they would be protected from life-threatening situations. In return, I agreed to sing at the hotel, something I hadn't done in a long time. Your live performance video was the only one you ever released when you were active. It's still my treasure. As a token of thanks, come stay at our hotel and sing for us. I'll make sure you're treated like a VIP. With the help of the men from the hotel, I successfully got revenge on Tom and his group. I also managed to divorce Tom. I felt rejuvenated and have been enjoying life with my in-laws. Tom's sister and her husband were fired for unexcused absences from work. Their phones were taken by the locals, leaving them without a means to contact anyone. My in-laws explained the situation well, so it didn't become a police matter, and no one seemed to care about them. Thus, my ties with Tom were completely severed. Since then, I've been focusing on work and living a happy life. Occasionally, I check on Tom and his group through the receptionist. They're still enduring harsh conditions, but I don't feel any sympathy for them. I asked for their lives to be spared, and now I'm relishing my life to the fullest.
I spent $200,000. Kenny, who didn't even come to my mom's funeral, had suddenly flown overseas. $200,000. What did you do with all that money? Remember our nice piano at home? I sold the dude. Being from a rich family has its perks. It was a good piano. I never thought it would sell for $200,000. Kenny thought the piano at home was his, but he was wrong. My condolences. I get all the inheritance from the family estate. But that piano was actually bought by our grandpa for my brother, so it's still his. My brother loves that piano and teaches piano now. He left it at our house because it's too big for his place. If my brother finds out we sold it without asking him, he'll be really mad. Just giving him money won't fix it. When I told Kenny this, he hung up right away. Hi, I'm Rachel Schneider, a 45-year-old office worker. My family has a long history tracing back to colonial times and is quite prominent in our community. Thanks to my late father's successful business, we now possess assets worth $9 million. Originally, my older brother was set to inherit the family estate, but he chose love over inheritance, opting to forego his rights to marry his girlfriend, who needed an heir for her family's wealth. This decision left me with the task of finding a spouse to carry on our family name. Despite my desire for independence and reluctance to rely on family wealth, I focused solely on my career, and before I knew it, I was in my mid-40s and still single. Realizing the urgency of continuing our family line, I decided to take action and attended a singles mixer. It was there that I met Kenny, my current husband. Surprisingly, he's 10 years younger than me, but at the event, he showed no interest in the younger women and approached me directly. I'm not sure if you're okay with someone my age, I asked him multiple times. But Kenny gazed into my eyes and replied, I'm a bit shy and not very assertive. I've always been attracted to older, more grounded women. Kenny's demeanor matched his words, gentle and reserved. I sensed he could bring a sense of calm to my family, which tends to be assertive. As our relationship blossomed, there was something important I needed to share with him. My mother had been ill and bedridden for the past year, and my sister-in-law, Catherine, and I were taking turns caring for her. Considering our age and the prospect of marriage, I struggled with how to reveal this to Kenny. Eventually, on our third date, I mustered the courage to tell him. To my relief, he not only accepted but also proposed, expressing his willingness to assist with caregiving. His kindness deeply moved me. At least, that's how I initially felt. Kenny works as a daycare teacher, but just 4 months into our marriage, he expressed a sudden desire to quit his job. When I inquired about the reason, he wore a remorseful expression and said, Sorry, Rachel. The parents at the daycare are too demanding and complain a lot. I can't handle it anymore. It was evident that Kenny was struggling, appearing so timid. Normally, I would have encouraged him to persevere, but with him assisting in my mother's care and my pregnancy progressing, I remained silent. However, I soon began to regret my leniency. One day, as I exited the shower and approached the bedroom, I overheard Kenny whispering on the phone. What I heard left me shocked and unsettled. I managed to tie the knot without her suspecting a thing. I'm jobless. She bought my story about quitting work hook, line, and sinker. Little does she know, I ditched that job 2 years back. His conversation seemed directed at a friend on the other end of the line. A faint male voice responded, "You're quite the operator. Rachel's family is loaded, so I thought I hit the jackpot when I met her at that singles event. But let's face it, given her age, I was probably her only option. I felt duped. Was the sweet Kenny I fell for all an act? I wanted to confront him right then and there, but the thought of the baby stopped me cold. With Kenny's true colors revealed, I began to doubt our future. Today, Catherine will be looking after my mom until 5 p.m. Then it's my turn. I debated whether to confide in someone about Kenny. That's when my brother's wife, Catherine, approached me. "Rachel, you seem troubled. If there's anything on your mind, feel free to share," Catherine said, her kindness evident, having cared for her own mother for years and now mine. She's really good with Mom, too. So I confided in her about Kenny, and she listened attentively. "It's good you opened up. Keeping it to yourself could harm your unborn child," she reassured me. "Yeah, I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Talking won't solve everything, but it does lighten the load. Still, this situation is quite something." Catherine looked genuinely concerned, almost as if it were her own problem. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, and Kenny walked in without waiting for an answer. Both of us were surprised, but Kenny acted as if nothing was wrong and smiled. "Rachel, I'll be helping with your mom's care from now on. You're not in the safe period yet, so I don't want you to strain yourself," Kenny said, playing the gentleman in front of me. "Really? Okay, let me show you how to care for her." "No, I'll learn from Catherine. You just rest at home." "Well, my brother's coming home early today, so we won't need her help." Upon hearing that, Catherine looked at me, shaking her head, as if to say, "It's okay." She might confront Kenny and get the full story once I'm gone. With that in mind, I decided to leave it to her and head home. But I couldn't shake my worry, so I pretended to leave but hid nearby. Catherine tried to start a conversation with Kenny, but he beat her to it. "I've been meaning to ask, why are you taking care of your mother-in-law in this house?" he asked, using the same tone as on the phone. "Well, my husband's busy, and Rachel has her job. But more importantly, why you ask?" Then Kenny interrupted. "What?" and began hurling insults at Catherine. "You live in such a wealthy home. You'd have enough money to put your mother-in-law in a care facility, wouldn't you? Or is it something else? Did your husband give up his claim to this family's wealth? So you're trying to curry favor by taking care of her? That must be it. You'd be pretty upset if you married into money and didn't get a piece of the inheritance, wouldn't you?" It was cruel. I was furious too, ready to leave the room. But just as I was about to, Catherine, noticing me, signaled with her eyes to stay put. Reluctantly, I remained silent and watched the scene unfold. "You've hit a nerve, haven't you? If that's the case, leave right now. This family's wealth belongs to my wife and me, so I'll handle my mother-in-law's care alone from now on." With Kenny's stern declaration, Catherine felt it was pointless to argue further and left the scene. Sensing the tension, I discreetly stepped outside, concerned about Catherine's feelings and wondering how to apologize to her. Kenny took over Mom's care entirely, refusing any assistance from me. He only provided basic instructions on caregiving. But his neglectful approach led to tragic consequences, and our mother passed away. The funeral took place at the church where generations of our family had been laid to rest. However, Kenny was nowhere to be found from the moment Mom passed away. Despite my attempts to locate him, I was too overwhelmed with funeral arrangements to pursue the matter. Relatives and neighbors were puzzled by his absence. Catherine, grief-stricken at the altar, apologized for trusting Kenny with Mom's care. Approaching her, I tried to offer some comfort. Catherine, please don't blame yourself. It's not your fault. Rachel, it's not your fault either. But where is that man? I wanted to confront him today, and he disappears just as Mom passes away. Exactly. And didn't Kenny often leave the house while he was supposed to be caring for Mom? Where was he going? Yes, neighbors mentioned he was frequently out, almost as if he wasn't caregiving at all, just loafing around. They also mentioned a big truck that came by once. What was that about? I wanted to ask, but with the funeral, I didn't bring it up. Days passed, and Kenny still hadn't returned. Then, I received a call from him. Hey Rachel, I'm in a fancy hotel in Europe, like the ones you see on TV travel shows, Kenny said nonchalantly. Kenny, you missed Mom's funeral, and now this. I spent $200,000. $200,000? Where did you get that kind of money? Remember the grand piano at our family home? I sold it. Who knew it was worth $200,000? Kenny confessed to selling the family's cherished grand piano and squandering the money on luxury travel in Europe. I never imagined Kenny would pull something like this while supposed to be caring for Mom. Our family home had tight security, but with family, it's different. That truck must have been there to move the piano. Why would you do something so selfish? The whole family was worried about you missing the funeral. Well, once you have a kid, you won't have much free time. Since you have a job, I guess I'll have to be the stay-at-home dad. Kenny's words left me stunned. Despite my anger, his willingness to take on childcare was a silver lining. But it seemed he was aiming to live off me. Additionally, Kenny seemed to think the piano belonged to me. Confronting Kenny, who had unknowingly sold a piano and spent the money, I started with my condolences. Huh. What do you mean? Kenny seemed bewildered, so I explained about the piano. That piano belonged to my grandfather, bought for my brother. So it still belongs to him. Oh, really? I'll just apologize to your brother then, Kenny replied, lacking any remorse for selling someone else's property. Kenny only met my brother at our wedding, so it's understandable he didn't know. My brother is a piano teacher and has loved the piano since childhood. He begged our grandfather for that specific piano. Although there's no room for it in his house now, it's still his. He even dreams of starting his own school with it. The piano means everything to him. I can only imagine what punishment he'll have for you when he hears it was sold without permission. By the way, my brother despises dishonesty. As I explained, Kenny remained silent. Understand? Mere compensation won't suffice when he finds out you sold his beloved piano. He's not one to compromise. I wonder what punishment awaits you. With that warning, the call abruptly ended. He's probably regretting it now. I called my brother and told him everything. Needless to say, he was furious. The next day, Kenny rushed home, finding everyone gathered in the living room. What's going on? Why is everyone here? Kenny asked nervously. I heard everything from Rachel, my brother said sternly. What possessed you to sell someone else's property, especially something so valuable, without consulting the family? Kenny tried to justify himself, visibly shaken. I was just trying to pitch in with the household chores out of boredom. When I saw the old, large grand piano, I figured no one was using it anymore. So you decided to sell it. Yeah, it seemed like a waste to just leave it there. My brother, wearing a stern expression, pressed further. Really? That piano was special, imported by our grandfather from a top European manufacturer. Where's the money from the sale? As anticipated, my brother was playing his part well. Everyone probably knew Kenny had spent all the money on an overseas trip, but my brother was aiming for a confession in front of everyone. Kenny seemed lost in thought, struggling to come up with an excuse. The sales money. Yeah, it hasn't come in yet. Kenny stammered, clearly flustered, but my brother wasn't buying it. You're lying? How deceitful can you get? And what about those souvenirs from Europe in that huge suitcase? Kenny recoiled as if struck by lightning, closing his eyes in shame. I'm sorry, I spent all the money. Kenny's admission left the relatives murmuring in shock. Everyone knew the value of that grand piano. They couldn't fathom how Kenny could blow $200,000 on just one trip overseas. My brother, looking down at Kenny, lifted his chin with his hand, locking eyes with him as he said, "As Rachel probably told you, that piano was mine. Now that it's gone, you'll repay every penny. If you can't, I'll sue you for theft. Are we clear?" My brother's intensity was palpable, almost resembling a mob boss. While this would typically be a family matter, my brother was likely using intimidation tactics, knowing Kenny was clueless about the law. Predictably, Kenny lost his voice and began sweating profusely. Then, with a terrified glance at me, he pleaded, "Rachel, please help me." His voice was desperate, but I had no intention of intervening. This mess was entirely of his own making. When I rejected his plea, Kenny resorted to a ludicrous argument, saying, "Don't be so cold. I looked after your mom while you were pregnant. I saw the trip as a reward for myself after caregiving. Let's just say we both agreed to sell the piano this way. Since we're siblings, it can't be considered theft, right?" I was so dumbfounded that my mouth hung open, unable to form a response. It was Catherine who stepped in to defend me. "That's enough. Didn't you tell Rachel not to assist with caregiving? You even accused me of being after the inheritance and tried to push me away. Kenny, did you say such awful things to my wife too?" "Yes, I didn't want to worry you, so I kept quiet. But this man must have been scheming to sell the piano without letting Rachel and me near the family home." Catherine's words resonated with me, remembering how Kenny prevented me from getting close to the family home when he said he'd handle our parents alone. I reached the same conclusion. My brother's anger flared up once more. "Listen closely. My wife cared for Mom because she wanted her to stay out of a facility. She agreed out of kindness, not for money. First, apologize to my wife right now." With my brother grabbing Kenny by the collar, tears welled up in Kenny's eyes as he knelt before Catherine. "I'm so sorry, Catherine." Kenny's apology for his disrespectful behavior towards Catherine didn't soften the cold gazes of the relatives. Then, one of them shouted at Kenny, "You need to repay the money from the piano sale promptly. We can't tolerate a criminal in the Schneider family. It'll stain our name." Misinterpreting the situation once more, Kenny made another peculiar remark. "Exactly. We can't have a criminal in the family, right, bro? So let's keep calm. We'll work together as a couple to repay the debt gradually." Even my uncle was left speechless by Kenny's illogical response. Feeling that further discussion would be futile, I excused myself to retrieve something from my room. Ever since the phone incident, I had a divorce lawyer's business card ready. "Kenny, call this number. I want our marriage to end. Let's handle things through legal channels." Kenny's face drained of color when he saw the business card I handed him. "Why? We're expecting a baby. Why are you doing this?" At that moment, I disclosed what Kenny had said to everyone on the phone. "You heard that. It was just a joke. Do you think that's a valid excuse? I've known all along that you were after my inheritance." Everyone present glared at Kenny, realizing there was no way to justify his actions. Kenny responded with defiance, unwilling to admit his wrongdoing. "Rachel, please, I need your help," Kenny pleaded in desperation. He explained that the buyer of the grand piano he sold wanted to return it and get a refund. When Kenny had sold the piano, he claimed it was in perfect condition. However, upon inspection, the buyer discovered a large engraving on the back indicating my brother's ownership. It seemed Kenny hadn't checked thoroughly. Instead of selling it through a reputable dealer, he likely chose a shady one enticed by offers like completely free, and now he faced the consequences. Kenny had to refund $200,000 to the buyer, a significant sum considering his debt to my brother. Despite Kenny's attempt to file for bankruptcy, my brother and I took legal action to prevent it. Now, burdened with more debt, Kenny worked tirelessly in manual labor. Eventually, the heirloom grand piano was safely returned. Relieved, My brother secured it with a strong lock and installed a security camera in the room, exercising caution. "No one will touch that piano until I begin my piano lessons," my brother declared, unchanged from his childhood self, which brought a smile to my face. With his desire to start a piano school at our family home, I decided to discuss sharing our mother's inheritance. Feeling guilty for inheriting everything alone after Catherine's devoted care for our mother, I proposed the idea to my brother, who agreed. It ensured a positive relationship with his family in the future. And so, I welcomed a long-awaited baby girl. While some relatives hoped for an heir, I believe daughters tend to cherish their mothers longer in today's age. Besides, my mother, an only daughter herself, accepted a son-in-law, so if necessary, my daughter could do the same. Embracing single motherhood, I found unwavering support from Catherine, who had finished raising her own children. Grateful for her assistance during my mother's care, I felt deeply indebted to her. My brother eagerly volunteered to be a father figure for my daughter, his excitement palpable. Additionally, my brother and Catherine's two adult daughters, both kindergarten teachers, shared his passion for the piano, bonding with my daughter. Surrounded by such warmth and support, I felt immensely fortunate, and with gratitude, I resolved to face life's challenges head-on with my daughter by my side. "Why did someone get buried in the garden?" I quickly covered my daughter's mouth as she blurted out the question. It was supposed to be a happy day celebrating our new house. I worried Ruby, the host, might react badly if my daughter embarrassed her. My brother had warned me about Ruby's temper. Thankfully, I managed to smooth things over. Later, as we were leaving, I found my daughter chatting with something by the flower bed. Suddenly, Ruby swung a bat at her. "Sarah," I cried out, reaching for her. "My name is Avon. I'm 35, and I live with my 5-year-old daughter, Sarah. My husband works away, so we see him rarely. It gets lonely without him. Thankfully, my parents live close by, just a 5-minute drive away. We visit them often, but sometimes there are issues when we go over." "Yvonne, there's a problem again?" "You're here so often, Yvonne. Isn't that too much? It's pointless for you to stay married." Those sharp words were from Ruby, my sister-in-law. My parents, along with my older brother Eugene and his wife Ruby, were living together temporarily. Eugene was building a new house, so they stayed with our parents until it was ready. "Even if your husband's away, are you relying on your parents too much?" Ruby, a year older than me, wasn't necessarily mean, but she was assertive and a bit snarky. I've never liked her, not since she started dating my brother. I still don't get what he sees in her. I never understood why she was so tough on me, her sister-in-law. Plus, she didn't seem to enjoy kids, especially my daughter. "Grandma, let's play," Sarah said, pulling my mother's hand excitedly. Ruby made a clearly annoyed face. It's exhausting when Sarah's here. She's so noisy. "Yvonne, you really need to discipline her more. It'll create problems later on." Those comments always made me uneasy. I'd only visited because Sarah wanted to see her grandparents, but Ruby's remarks always gave me a headache. The second issue was about my daughter Sarah. She has a strange ability to see things others can't and sense certain things. At first, we didn't believe it, but after she accurately found lost items and other eerie incidents, we started to accept it. It was a family secret we kept hidden. I never thought it would come out like this. Finally, the long cohabitation was ending. My brother and his wife's new house was ready, and they were moving out soon. I was looking forward to it. Living together had been tough. Ruby whispered to me, and I could only manage a weak smile. It wasn't just hard for her. I was relieved our parents' home would finally be peaceful. My daughter looked at me curiously. "Mom, why do you act differently around Ruby? You're more relaxed with Grandma and Eugene." "Well, you see, Eugene and I grew up together, but Ruby only recently joined our family through marriage." My daughter seemed unsure. "Sorry, was that confusing?" "No, I understand. But it's sad." "Sad?" I asked, puzzled. Sarah nodded. "It's sad that we finally became a family, and now we're going to be separated again soon." When Sarah speaks like that, It's oddly convincing. Separated. Could it be that Eugene and his wife are getting divorced? Well, it would be a relief for me. I feel bad for Eugene if he's upset. So, they just finished building their new house, and now the idea of them divorcing so soon is hard to grasp. I couldn't understand it, so I simply asked Sarah to promise not to talk about it elsewhere and decided not to think about it too much. Some time after Eugene and his wife moved, we got an invitation to their housewarming party. We wrapped a nice gift of money, and the five of us, including my parents, Sarah, and me, went over. Eugene's house was about a 20-minute drive from our parents' place. Since my small car couldn't fit all five of us, we had to use my father's car. It was an old manual transmission, which made me nervous, but my father is a safer driver than I am, so it should be fine. It's pretty impressive to me that you can drive a stick shift, I said to him. When we arrived, I was immediately struck by the beauty of the place. It was a brand new build indeed. The exterior alone was impressive. The yard was spacious, and there was even a new flower bed near the bay window. There weren't any flowers yet, just soil, but it was still impressive. Wow, it's so big, Sarah exclaimed, running around the yard with joy. Hey, Sarah, I called out, trying to catch up to her, but Eugene stopped me. Let her play. It's okay if she wants to enjoy the big yard. Oh, thank you, I replied, trusting Eugene's judgment. I kept an eye on Sarah to make sure she stayed safe. While she stayed in the yard, Sarah wouldn't get lost or bother anyone. I found myself daydreaming about having a house of our own when Ruby came over, loudly reprimanding us from a distance. Hey, Yvonne, you should be keeping a closer eye on Sarah. Oh, did she do something? Sarah had been playing around, but she hadn't caused any trouble. I couldn't recall anything that would upset Ruby, but she seemed angry. Is it normal to let kids run wild at a housewarming? It's quite disruptive, don't you think? I'm sorry, Eugene said it was fine, so I thought it was okay. That's just Eugene being too polite to say anything. Don't take it personally. I couldn't afford to upset Ruby further. I had seen Eugene endure Ruby's outbursts many times before. I apologize. I'll make sure she behaves. I went after Sarah, who had just dashed past me. As I approached, I found her crouched by the flower bed, staring intently. All she could see was dirt. No flowers had bloomed yet. What's so fascinating, Sarah? What are you doing? When I asked from above, my daughter looked up and said, Why is there a person buried in the garden? What? After a moment to process her words, I instinctively covered my daughter's mouth. Of all things, she had to say that here during my brother and his wife's housewarming. It was meant to be a joyous occasion, but if Sarah said something inappropriate, it could cause trouble. Ruby had a temper, as my brother had warned me. It seemed my brother had heard, but fortunately, Ruby was engrossed in conversation with Mom and hadn't noticed. Look, Sarah, what a lovely house. Isn't it beautiful? Let's go inside. I caught my brother's eye, his expression mixed, and tried to distract my daughter as we moved. I kept my hand over her mouth, but Sarah squirmed free and said, Mom, it's strange. Why aren't we helping the person buried in the garden? Sarah, it's okay. I'll talk to Eugene. Sarah slipped away and ran to my brother, grabbing his hand and pulling him toward the flower bed. Seeing the look on my brother's face, who knows? Sarah's determination spoke volumes. Sarah, do you see something by the flower bed? Sarah looks up at my brother, tilting her head. Yeah, Eugene, can't you see? We need to help them quickly. They're calling for Ruby, asking for her. This caught both my brother and me off guard, and we exchanged surprised glances. Ruby was still engrossed in conversation with Mom. Ruby's name? Right here. My brother and I approached the flower bed. Upon closer inspection, the soil Sarah pointed to had a slightly different color, as if it had been disturbed before. A shiver ran down my spine as a chilling thought crossed my mind. What should we do, Eugene? We can't just ignore what Sarah said. Not because she's a child, but because it's Sarah. My brother fetched a small gardening spade from the back of the house. It seemed inadequate for digging, but it was all we had. When we tapped the soil, It felt unnaturally hard, as if something had been compacted to conceal it. My brother, perhaps frightened, was cautious and couldn't apply much force with the spade. Impatiently, Sarah grabbed the spade from him. Eugene, you're not good at this. Let me do it. Sarah, wait, I said, reaching out to stop her. But Ruby grabbed Sarah's wrist before I could react. Ruby had approached unnoticed and squatted down to Sarah's level, smiling brightly. Hey Sarah, don't touch my special flower garden. Relieved at Ruby's cheerful demeanor, I pulled Sarah closer. That's right, Sarah. You can't touch things without permission. Sorry, Ruby. No problem, but don't touch it again. Ever. I sensed an unusual intensity in Ruby's demeanor. I lowered my head again, attempting to escape to my mother, Yvonne, with Sarah in tow. But Sarah pointed at the flower bed once more and exclaimed, Look, that person is watching Ruby over there. Sarah, you might scare Ruby with that talk. Please don't say such things. Whenever Sarah said something like this before, it left people pale and trembling. I imagined Ruby must be terrified to hear such things about our new home. Apologies, Ruby. It's just a misunderstanding by Sarah. I tried to make amends, glancing at Ruby's face. Despite any dislike I harbored for her, I felt sorry for frightening her. I thought I needed my brother Eugene to smooth things over, but Ruby's expression caught my breath. Instead of fear, her eyes were wide with anger. Sarah, is someone really watching me? Yes, and they're asking for your help, Sarah replied. Ruby simply scoffed and smirked, but her eyes betrayed no amusement. For some reason, Ruby's expression filled me with dread, and I shivered. I'm sorry, Ruby. It's fine. Just kids being kids, Ruby dismissed, though her tone lacked warmth. Eugene swiftly intervened between me and Ruby, diffusing the tension for the moment. We entered the new house with our parents and settled onto the plush new couch. Wow, it's so comfy, Sarah exclaimed. Her spirits lifted in the new surroundings as she sank into the couch happily. It seemed she had completely forgotten the earlier incident, and I felt relieved. We ordered some sushi for takeout, chatting, and enjoying the meal. Sarah must have been tired from all the excitement because before long, she had fallen asleep on the couch. Would you like to take her upstairs to bed? Should Eugene carry her? Really? Thank you. That would be helpful. We still have some time before we head back. It might be better than her sleeping in the busy living room. Initially, I thought so too, but then I had a bad feeling. I think it's fine. She might feel lonely waking up alone. Oh, she's already 5, isn't she? She'll be fine. She can sleep here. Yvonne, you're a bit overprotective, aren't you? Ruby murmured, smoothly returning to the conversation with my brother and parents. Despite the brief exchange, I couldn't stop sweating. After a while, Sarah woke up. It's almost time to leave. We agreed with our dad and started preparing to go home. As I cleaned up the table and washed the cups, my daughter tugged on my clothes. Hey, Mom, are we leaving now? Just a little longer, okay? We'll be leaving soon. You're being impatient. Maybe it was because she had just woken up, but Sarah seemed a bit cranky. I didn't want to deal with a tantrum right now, so I decided to ask my mother for help. Mom, could you please rinse these? Sarah is getting grumpy. My mother hurried over, but Ruby blocked her. Then how about Sarah and I play in the yard while we wait? In the yard? Let's do that. My daughter lit up at the idea of going outside. More than that, I was surprised that Ruby invited her to play. She wasn't known to be fond of children, so I was puzzled but grateful. Thank you, Ruby, but we're getting ready to head home. It's just until you leave. It's fine. Come on, Sarah, let's go. Yeah. Sarah cheerfully replied, taking Ruby's hand as they left. It's odd. Ruby isn't usually interested in children, Eugene remarked, watching them go with a puzzled expression. I know, right? Sarah and Ruby have met many times, but I've never seen them play together. Sarah isn't shy around strangers and would happily approach Ruby, but I always thought Ruby kept her distance. Yet today, Ruby was the one who initiated. Something felt off. I'm going outside too, I announced, rushing out in a hurry. Sarah was squatting in front of the flower bed, engaged in conversation. Ruby was nowhere to be seen. Intrigued, I slowed my pace and hurried over to her. Then, in the next moment, I witnessed Ruby swinging a baseball bat at Sarah's head with all her strength. It was a terrifying moment. I grabbed my daughter's arm, and we both stumbled backward. A metallic clang reverberated through the yard as the bat struck where Sarah had been just moments before. Eugene and my parents rushed outside upon hearing the noise. "What was that, Ruby?" Eugene, shocked at the sight of Ruby holding the bat, inquired. My heart raced as I held Sarah tightly. It had been too close. If I had been a moment later, Sarah could have. I couldn't even bring myself to think about it. I glanced up at Ruby, her expression a mix of anger and perhaps indifference. "What happened?" Eugene asked suspiciously. "Ruby, did you try to hit Sarah with the bat?" "I can't believe it." Eugene approached Ruby in disbelief. "Is it true, Ruby? Why would you?" Ruby simply smirked. "Come on, Yvonne. It was just a joke." Anger surged within me, and I retorted, "A joke? Are you serious? If that had hit her, do you realize what could have happened? It wouldn't have been a mere injury." As I spoke, I noticed something horrific. The end of the baseball bat was stained with something dark red. Catching my gaze, Ruby exhaled. "Sarah started it, didn't she? She shouldn't have said what she did." My eyes were drawn involuntarily to the flower bed. Could it be true? Was there really someone buried beneath, as my daughter had claimed? Fear gripped me, making my teeth chatter. My brother, concerned, kept me and Sarah away from Ruby. "What's going on, Ruby?" "It's nothing serious, just a joke. Maybe I went too far." My brother gazed at Ruby for a moment, then decisively went to the back of the yard. He grabbed a small shovel and started digging up the flower bed Sarah had pointed out earlier. "Hey, Eugene, what are you doing?" Ruby tried to intervene, but she couldn't stop my brother. He kept digging until he unearthed something, leaving him speechless and clutching his head. Ruby collapsed weakly beside him. "Eugene, Yvonne, call the police," he said urgently. "Quickly take Sarah and go home." From my brother's unusual behavior, I realized Sarah's words were true. He had found something Sarah had mentioned. I immediately dialed the police. Surprisingly, Ruby remained subdued until the police arrived. She repeated, "It's all over," as if in a daze, but she didn't become furious or try to escape. Once the police arrived, I decided to stay with my brother while leaving my daughter with my parents. My mother was too frightened to accompany us, and although my father offered to stay, we would then be without a driver. "I'll be fine alone," I insisted, though it wasn't entirely true. I couldn't leave my brother by himself. "Sarah, listen to Grandma and Grandpa and wait here, okay?" "Okay, Mommy. Take care of Eugene too." "Of course." I couldn't gauge how much my daughter understood, but I reassured her with a smile. My brother appeared to be conversing calmly with the officer. I observed from a corner of the yard so as not to interfere. Suddenly, Ruby's voice erupted in anger. "I've already told you, I don't know anything." "Fine, let's go to the station, and I'll explain everything there." "You're just trying to blame me? I won't go." The officer looked puzzled by Ruby's outburst. A female officer attempted to grab Ruby's arm, but she shook her off and sought refuge behind my brother. Eugene, help me. My brother, visibly flustered, held Ruby's shoulder but remained conflicted, neither embracing her nor pushing her away. I didn't do anything wrong. It's a false accusation. Though my brother may have wanted to believe Ruby, her recent actions, like swinging a baseball bat at Sarah, suggested otherwise. "Is someone watching me?" "Yeah, they're asking for Ruby's help." Ruby's response was a cynical "ha," with no trace of a smile in her eyes. Her demeanor sent a chill down my spine, and I shuddered. "I'm sorry, Ruby. It's okay. It's just kid stuff." Eugene quickly intervened between me and Ruby, momentarily diffusing the tension. We retreated into the new house with our parents, settling onto the plush couch. "Wow, it's so comfy," Sarah's mood seemed to brighten in the new surroundings as she happily sank into the couch. She appeared to have forgotten the earlier incident, bringing a sense of relief. We ordered some takeout sushi, engaging in light conversation while eating. Sarah must have been exhausted from all the excitement, as she soon drifted off to sleep on the couch. Would you like to put her to bed upstairs? Should Eugene carry her? Really? Thank you. That would be helpful. We still have some time before we head back. It might be better than her sleeping in the busy living room. Initially, I thought so too. But then I had a bad feeling. I think it's fine. She might feel lonely waking up alone. Oh, she's already 5, isn't she? She'll be fine. She can sleep here. Yvonne, you're a bit overprotective, aren't you? Ruby murmured, seamlessly rejoining the conversation with my brother and parents. Despite the brief exchange, I couldn't shake off my nervousness. Soon after, Sarah woke up. It's time to leave. We agreed with our dad and began preparing to head home. As I tidied up the table and washed the cups, Sarah tugged on my clothes. Mom, are we leaving yet? Just a little longer, okay? We'll be leaving soon. You're being a bit impatient. Sarah seemed a bit cranky, perhaps due to just waking up. Not wanting to deal with a potential tantrum, I asked my mother for help. Mom, could you please rinse these? Sarah is getting a bit grumpy. My mother hurried over, but Ruby blocked her. How about Sarah and I play in the yard while we wait? In the yard? Yes, let's do that. Sarah was thrilled at the idea of going outside. I was surprised that Ruby invited her to play. Thank you, Ruby, but we're getting ready to head home. It's just until you leave. It's fine. Come on, let's go, Sarah. Yeah, Sarah cheerfully replied, taking Ruby's hand, and they left. It's odd. Ruby isn't usually fond of children, Eugene remarked, watching them go with a stunned expression. I agree. Ruby and my daughter have met many times, but I've never seen them play together. Sarah isn't shy with strangers and would happily approach Ruby, but I always thought Ruby kept her distance. Yet today, Ruby was the one who initiated. Something didn't feel right to me. I decided to go outside too. I rushed out hurriedly. Sarah was squatting in front of the flower bed, engaged in conversation. Ruby was nowhere to be seen. Intrigued, I slowed my pace and ran over to her. Then, in the next moment, I witnessed Ruby swinging a baseball bat at Sarah's head with all her might. It was a terrifying moment. I grabbed my daughter's arm, and we both stumbled backward. A metallic clang reverberated through the yard as the bat struck where Sarah had been just moments before.
When I was around 8 years old, I accidentally broke a vase that meant a lot to my stepmom. She never really seemed to like me much, and she gave my dad an ultimatum. It's either her or me. I was sure my dad would choose me because we were really close, but that night he said I was going to stay at Grandma's. I couldn't believe it until I actually got there, and he left. That moment changed something inside me. He called me every day and tried to visit as much as he could, but I couldn't pretend to be happy because I wasn't home. I stopped pretending pretty quickly. Looking back, I realized I acted like I didn't feel anything towards him. No anger or sadness, just numbness. Sometimes I overheard my dad complaining to Grandma about how I had changed. When I was 9, I told my mom I wanted to live with her all the time because I couldn't stand talking to my dad or seeing him anymore. Even though her apartment was small, she agreed. Honestly, I slept in her bed until I moved in with my fiancé. But I didn't mind because she's my mom, and it was better than being alone in my own room with him around. My mom and I got really close, and she signed me up for after-school activities so I could avoid my dad, and eventually, we just stopped talking to each other. I'm grateful for it because it meant I didn't have to be around him. A few years ago, my stepmom had a baby, and everyone was celebrating. But I was glad I wasn't there and hadn't even met the kid yet. I only saw him on special occasions or when they visited Grandma's house when I happened to be there. My fiancé proposed to me recently in a low-key way, and I only told a few family members about it. Now even Grandma knows how little I talk to my dad and how I keep him out of the loop. So it was a shock when my dad called me, inviting me to a family dinner to meet my fiancé and my new baby brother. I made up an excuse because I wasn't interested. Turns out Grandma spilled the beans, and I got angry with her for telling my dad about my engagement. Then my dad texted me, scolding me for taking my issues out on Grandma. I hate to admit it, but he was right about that. He sent me to Grandma's because he couldn't deal with me, and now he wants us to play happy family? Not happening. All I need to tell him is that my fiancé and I, congratulations by the way, have no interest in having dinner with a man who chose his wife over his own child because of a broken vase. And let's not even get started on how my stepmom got away with giving such an ultimatum in the first place. He's reaping what he sowed, no doubt about it. Speaking as a father myself, there's no way I'd ever prioritize a girlfriend over my own child, especially not for something as trivial as a vase. I'd probably burst out laughing if she ever tried to give me an ultimatum like that. It seems like both dad and stepmom are a match made in heaven, if you ask me. Honestly, I'd be tempted to send them a goodwill vase with a sarcastic note like, "Since you missed the wedding, here's a vase you can walk down the aisle anytime you want." Or maybe even a photo of the vase dressed up like a bride. If the OP is Jewish, perhaps she and her fiancé could film themselves smashing vases in a wedding-style video. Oh, but why not send a vase to your dad and stepmom to congratulate them on the new baby, along with a card? You could write something like, "Hope the new baby doesn't break anything too precious. Grandma's not getting any younger raising your kids." Or even, "The day you chose your wife over your own child was the day I stopped being your daughter. Please refrain from contacting me, as I have no interest in maintaining a relationship with you." It's powerful and eloquent. And OP, don't forget to apologize to your grandma, but make it clear that you'll have to limit what you share with her if she continues to pass information along to your father. I have 2 sons who are in their preteen years from my previous relationship. My ex and I split up because of various issues, one of which was Emily, a woman he worked closely with for years. They became very close, and she often made remarks to me about how my ex deserved someone better than me and accused me of trying to tear his family apart. Sometimes she even pretended to be his wife at work events, which my ex would just brush off. Besides, he wasn't great at handling finances and other responsibilities. After we separated, my ex officially started dating Emily, which wasn't surprising to me at all. Emily became even more hostile when she realized that my ex's family still liked me and continued to include me in their gatherings, especially when she noticed that my sons weren't thrilled about the situation. She saw herself as their dad's new girlfriend. Emily went as far as to insult my ex's mom for praising me as the best mom during a family dinner. The judge warned my ex about using Emily for custody exchanges and dealing with our boys' issues. She had confronted me multiple times during exchanges, showing hostility and even saying things that could be seen as trying to turn the kids against me. Despite the warning, my ex continued to let her handle things, and he was fined for disobeying the judge's orders. He was told that if it happened again, custody arrangements would be changed. Lately, there's been more attention directed towards me. Emily, unable to have children of her own, wants the boys to see her as a mother figure. They came to me for guidance, but I refused, stating that Emily wasn't their mother and I wouldn't endorse it after the years of verbal abuse from her. During an awards night at school in June, Emily insisted the boys take photos with her for the school newsletter. But they refused, stating she wasn't their mom. My ex scolded them, but I stayed silent. When X and Emily criticized me for not supporting them and allowing disrespect, I defended the boys, stating that what they said wasn't disrespectful. They accused me of being a bad parent and teaching the kids to disrespect women, but I stood my ground. So am I the one in the wrong here? Definitely not. They were just stating the truth, and it's pretty amusing how they're trying to enforce respect while being disrespectful themselves. Should I consider seeking a modification of custody based on their behavior? Because honestly, your boy's well-being is at risk with these two. She's not their mom, and they're not replacements just because she can't have kids of her own. They're children, and if they don't ease off, they'll only push them away and damage their relationship permanently. What happens when nobody's around to protect them at his place? Will your ex prioritize your sons or his new wife? Let's face it, they were emotionally involved at least. How blind are Emily and your ex? This is exactly how most kids feel about their dad's new partner. They're never going to see her as their mom. And when she said she wasn't asking but ordering them, their response was spot on. She's not their mother, so she can't give them orders like that. It's a fact that Emily isn't their mom. And by being hostile towards their actual mother, she's not going to earn any motherly role in their lives. Your ex is making a huge mistake. He's letting his wife jeopardize his relationship with his own kids. Someone needs to make him see that. Let him know that you'll only make parenting decisions together, and she won't be involved in any motherly capacity. If she wants kids, they can adopt because she's not getting yours. Story 2. I'm a father of 2 daughters, Laura, who's 30, and Sarah, who's 19. They have a significant age gap of 10 years because my wife had fertility issues. Laura has achieved a PhD in psychology, and my wife and I couldn't be prouder of her accomplishments. However, Laura maintains very limited contact with us, largely due to her upbringing. I must confess that my wife and I were quite strict with her. When Laura was entering high school, she started to distance herself from us and often avoided spending time with the family. Eventually, we discovered from her counselor that Laura resented us for how we treated her when Sarah was born. Reflecting on our past actions, my wife and I decided to raise Sarah differently. We made a conscious effort to be more encouraging and supportive whenever Sarah faced challenges, aiming to provide her with a more positive upbringing. Unfortunately, this led to resentment from Laura, who felt that Sarah had a much easier childhood compared to her. As Sarah entered high school, we encountered behavioral issues such as disrespect and dishonesty, which caught us off guard. Despite this, we chose not to intervene significantly, fearing that Sarah would come to resent us as Laura did. As both girls excelled academically, we held on to the hope that everything would turn out fine. However, Sarah's behavior worsened during her final year of high school. Despite the escalating problems, we hesitated to take action, fearing that intervening would only strain our relationship with Sarah further. Fast forward to the present, Sarah is 19 and attending university, while Laura is enjoying financial success in her career. Recently, Sarah found herself in trouble after attempting to flirt with one of her professors and sending inappropriate pictures. Fed up with her behavior, my wife and I confronted her about her actions, expressing our disappointment and frustration. In the days that followed, I often found myself comparing Sarah's behavior to Laura's successes, highlighting Laura's respectfulness and achievements. One day, I even mentioned to Sarah that perhaps I should have raised her more like Laura. This comment struck a nerve, and Sarah lashed out. She accused me of mistreating Laura during her childhood, expressed her indifference toward my wife and me, and accused me of favoritism toward Laura. Sarah also revealed that her resentment and disrespectful behavior toward us stemmed from reading a journal that Laura had given her, where Laura had written about the punishments she received from us during her high school years. Story 3. When I was around 8 years old, I accidentally broke a vase that meant a lot to my stepmom. It seemed like she never really liked me, and she gave my dad an ultimatum. It's her or me. I thought my dad would pick me because we were so close. But that night he said I was going to stay at Grandma's. I couldn't believe it until I got there, and he left. That moment changed something inside me. He called every day and tried to visit often, but I couldn't pretend to be happy because I wasn't home. I stopped pretending quickly, and looking back, I realized I acted numb to him, not angry or sad, just emotionless. Sometimes I overheard him complaining to Grandma about how I had changed. When I turned 9, I told my mom I wanted to live with her full-time because I couldn't stand talking to my dad or seeing him anymore. Despite her tiny apartment, she agreed. I slept in her bed until I moved in with my fiancé. But I didn't mind because she's my mom, and it was better than dealing with him every day. My mom and I grew incredibly close, and she kept me busy with after-school activities to avoid my dad until contact eventually faded away. I'm grateful for it because I didn't have to endure being around him. A few years back, my stepmom gave birth, and there was a big celebration. I was relieved to be nowhere in sight and hadn't even met the kid yet. I'd only caught glimpses of him on birthdays or when they visited Grandma's house while I was there. About a week ago, my fiancé proposed to me in a low-key manner, and I shared the news with my mom, Uncle Mom's cousin, and Grandma. Now Grandma knows how little I communicate with my dad and how I keep him out of the loop. So it was quite unexpected when my dad called, inviting me to a family dinner to introduce my fiancé and meet my new baby brother. I made up an excuse because I wasn't interested. Grandma was the one who spilled the beans, and I ended up getting mad at her, even yelling for telling my dad about my upcoming marriage. Not long ago, I received a text from my dad chastising me for involving Grandma in my issues with him. As much as I hate to admit it, he was right about that. So he sent me packing to grandma's because he couldn't be bothered, and now he wants to pretend everything is fine. No way. All I need to say is that my fiancé and I, thanks for the congrats, have no desire to have dinner with a man who chose his wife over his child because of a broken vase. And let's not even start on how stepmom got away with issuing such an ultimatum in the first place. He's reaping what he sowed, no doubt about it. Speaking as a father myself, there's no way I'd ever prioritize a girlfriend over my own child, especially not for something as trivial as a vase. I probably burst out laughing if she ever tried to give me an ultimatum like that. It seems like both dad and stepmom are a match made in heaven, if you ask me. Honestly, I'd be tempted to send them a goodwill vase with a sarcastic note like, "Since you missed the wedding, here's a vase you can walk down the aisle anytime you want." Or maybe even a photo of the vase dressed up like a bride. If the OP is Jewish, perhaps she and her fiancé could film themselves smashing vases in a wedding-style video. OP, why not send a vase to your dad and stepmom to congratulate them on the new baby, along with a card? You could write something like, "Hope the new baby doesn't break anything too precious. Grandma's not getting any younger raising your kids." Or even, "The day you chose your wife over your own child was the day I stopped being your daughter. Please refrain from contacting me as I have no interest in maintaining a relationship with you." It's powerful and eloquent. And OP, don't forget to apologize to your grandma, but make it clear that you'll have to limit what you share with her if she continues to pass information along to your father. I have 2 sons with my ex, both in their tween years. Our relationship ended due to various issues, one of which was Emily, a colleague my ex became close to. She often belittled me, claiming my ex deserved better and that I was trying to break up their family. On multiple occasions, she even pretended to be his wife at work events, which my ex found amusing. Additionally, he struggled with financial management and other responsibilities. After our breakup, he officially started dating Emily, which didn't surprise me. Emily's hostility escalated when she realized my ex's family still respected me and included me in gatherings, despite my boys not being entirely happy about her presence as their dad's new girlfriend. She even insulted my ex's mom for praising me as the best mom during a family dinner. The situation worsened when the judge warned my ex about using Emily to handle custody exchanges and issues. Emily had confronted me several times in front of our children, showing hostility and making remarks that could be seen as attempting to alienate me as a parent. Despite the judge's warning, my ex continued this behavior, leading to fines for violating court orders. He was warned that if it happened again, custody arrangements would be revised. Lately, there's been a rise in tension directed toward me. Emily, unable to have children, desires the boys to see her as a mother figure. They sought my assistance, but I declined, asserting that Emily isn't their mother, and I won't encourage them to view her as such after the years of verbal abuse from her. During an award ceremony at school in June, the boys were asked by Emily to join her in photos for the school newsletter. They declined, stating she wasn't their mom, so she couldn't make such requests. Despite their refusal, my ex reprimanded the boys, while I remained silent. When confronted about not supporting them, I defended the boys, explaining that their response wasn't disrespectful. However, my ex and Emily insisted I should have intervened and not allowed such perceived disrespect. They accused me of being a bad parent, claiming I shouldn't have allowed the boys to act that way, and accused me of teaching them to disrespect women. So here I am, wondering if I'm the one at fault. No, you're not. They simply stated the truth. It's also quite amusing how they're insistent on avoiding disrespect. But does this behavior warrant revisiting custody arrangements in your favor? Frankly, the mental well-being of your boys is at stake with these two. She isn't their mother, and are not substitutes because she has fertility issues. They're just kids, and if they don't back off, they'll only alienate them and damage their relationship irreparably. What happens behind closed doors at his place when no one's there to protect them? Would your ex prioritize your sons or his new wife? Let's not ignore the emotional affair they had, at the very least. How blind can Emily and your ex be? This is precisely how most kids feel about their dad's new partner, and they're unlikely to accept her as their mom. As for her assertion that she wasn't asking, in essence, she was commanding them, their response was appropriate. She's not their mother, so she can't dictate to them that way. Emily isn't their mother. That's a fact. By being hostile to their mother, she won't play a maternal role in their lives. Your ex is making a mistake. He's allowing his wife to jeopardize his relationship with his own kids. You need to make that clear to him. Tell him that you'll only make parental decisions with him, and none will involve her as a mother. If she wants kids, they better adopt because she's not getting yours. Story 4. I'm a 55-year-old father with 2 daughters, Laura, age 30, and Sarah, age 19. There's a significant 10-year age gap between them due to my wife's fertility issues, which is important to note. Laura has achieved a PhD in psychology, and my wife and I couldn't be prouder of her accomplishments. However, Laura maintains minimal contact with us, largely due to her upbringing. I must confess that my wife and I were particularly strict with Laura. As she entered high school, she began to distance herself from us, often refusing to spend time with the family. It wasn't long before we discovered through her counselor that Laura harbored resentment towards us for how we treated her when Sarah was born. Reflecting on our past mistakes, my wife and I made a conscious decision to raise Sarah differently. We aimed to provide her with encouragement and support, unlike the treatment Laura received. Despite our efforts, Sarah's teenage years were not without challenges. Issues such as disrespect and dishonesty arose during her high school years, leaving us perplexed as to their origins. Nevertheless, we tolerated her behavior, fearing that intervening would only result in her resenting us, similar to Laura. Both Laura and Sarah excelled academically, leading us to believe that we were on the right track. However, Sarah's behavior deteriorated during her final year of high school, yet we hesitated to take action, fearing that she would come to despise us as Laura did. Fast forward to the present, Sarah is 19 years old and attending university, while Laura enjoys financial success in her career. Recently, Sarah found herself in trouble after attempting to flirt with one of her professors and sending him inappropriate pictures. Fed up with her behavior, my wife and I decided it was time to confront her. We expressed our disappointment and frustration, raising our voices in the process. In the days that followed, I frequently reminded Sarah of Laura's accomplishments and exemplary behavior. At one point, I even suggested that I should have raised her in the same manner as Laura. This comment sparked a strong reaction from Sarah. She lashed out, accusing me of mistreating Laura during her childhood and showing favoritism towards her. She expressed her disregard for my wife and me, claiming that my remarks had deeply hurt her. Additionally, she confessed that she had been acting rudely towards us after reading a journal that Laura had written during high school. In the journal, Laura detailed how we used to discipline her, which evidently affected Sarah's perception of our parenting.